Filipino
Mm-hmm.
kids and the Peruvian kids, and I'm working on how we can create a more inclusive society and a community for all. So this topic is definitely like something I can learn. Maybe I can implement it in my community.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Donna, how about you?
Yeah, we are increasingly getting more Vietnamese students, um, and they they have been really helpful in all my classes when they've been mixed with Japanese students. And in fact, I'm very sad because right now I have a class with no Vietnamese students, and it's I really miss them because I'm in a Zoom situation where I have no control, cannot make breakout rooms, cannot hear them. They can only hear me. So it's a really completely different way to teach. And it's very hard to get students to even raise their hand or move around. But if I had Vietnamese students or even a more active Japanese student, it would
Mm.
completely make a difference. And I would save a lot of teaching time. So,
Oh,
but anyway, it's because of more and more Vietnamese students coming into Japan.
okay. Yeah.
Mm.
And just, with this past year of the pandemic and everything, I had students even from Vietnam zooming in my class because they couldn't come back to Japan. They were stuck, right? So that's also a case. But yeah, I've also noticed an increase of students from Vietnam in my classes, and motivated as ever.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's the motivation, and it spreads to other students as well.
that's right.
Mm. And I think this year has been my first year to have Vietnamese students, and I
Oh,
had two of them in a comparative cultures class.
mhm.
And um, they bring in not only a different point of view because they're Vietnamese and they've come to Japan, so they've been able to have all that experience and share it, but also their motivation. They're just like, okay, we need to do this, and they're just so active, which is good for us teachers, but it's a very different way of thinking, way of working than the other students in the class.
But I think it adds a good vibe to the class too because they realize that these students are from Vietnam. And I think having them in class makes the others also feel like they need to
Mm.
work together and be motivated as well. So I think it's a positive thing.
Yes.
Mm.
It elevates the
Yes,
class.
that's what it is. Yeah.
So right now, my class is down in the basement.
Oh no, Donna. Oh goodness. Oh goodness.
Oh.
So I need to ask for Vietnamese students, please.
Mm.
Recruit them. So
Recruit them, yeah.
yes. Okay, shall we show do we want to show the first slide or
Yeah, well, first of all, a quick quiz then about the numbers. So, as part of our preliminary research, we did kind of, have a look through to see what the numbers of Vietnamese students are at the moment. Um, and traditionally here in Japan, Chinese have been the largest uh,
Right.
international student population. Um, do you guys know at the moment number two, number three? So still Chinese are the largest number of
now this
international.
is for students studying abroad here in for students, yes? Okay. So international students from abroad, what do you think number 2, 3?
Right. So like a Korean, but they were born here and they live here. That is not get counted.
No,
No, that's
this
not
is
counted. No.
Okay.
international coming
Yeah.
abroad to
International.
study.
Hmm. Interesting.
So they have to be on a student visa.
Mhm.
That's one of the requirements of this statistic.
I don't know. I think
Mm,
I think there were two or three. I think Vietnamese students are getting in, but that's my assumption. I think we have because I see more Vietnamese students here. Um,
Okay, so number
but
2 or 3.
yeah, but maybe number three Vietnamese student. But at the same time, I don't know. Chinese, we have a lot of Indonesian students,
Mhm.
um, Korean students. Mm, well, so I would say Korea two, Vietnamese three.
Okay.
My guess.
Donna?
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, possibly Indonesian is because I've seen more Indonesian. Um, hmm. Just I've had other students, but not in great numbers. You know, because I've taught students from Nepal, from India, Sri Lanka. Um, yeah, but not in huge numbers. I thought Vietnamese was noticeable to me
Hmm.
that there were more of them, and you know they were such a positive influence. So that's why I really noticed. Mm,
So, okay, so Indonesia, Vietnam, you saying? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, well, here's the answer for you guys. Where is it? So in 2019, yeah,
Ooh.
Vietnam became second
Right.
place. So Korean, the number of Korean students dropped down to fourth place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and actually it was overtaken by the number of Nepalese
Yeah,
students
Nepalese too.
at
Mhm.
higher education
Yeah,
institutions.
Yeah.
And so from looking back 2018, 2017, this is huge trend, a sudden influx of students from Nepal, Indonesia, Vietnam, and some students from Cambodia as well, and also I think it was
Myanmar? Myanmar.
Myanmar,
Myanmar.
Bangladesh, and Pakistan.
Mhm.
And the Korean students have dropped off, the Chinese students have dropped off, and soon, we're not quite sure, but probably the Vietnamese may surpass the number of Chinese international students.
Mhm.
Just today, I was in a speech contest. I wasn't in it, but I was participating. And in the Japanese language section, there were 2 Vietnamese students and 1 from Myanmar who were in participating. So yeah, you know, no Koreans, but Vietnamese, Myanmar was out of the 3 students. So should we start with our first slide? One of the slides that the first one?
Sure. So what we actually did is we did have an interview with a Vietnamese student just to kind of find out some basic information to see which direction we wanted to take our research in. And so we had a really long conversation with her. And this is what we found out. Let's see. Oops. Is this the one, Mags? Get up. There we go.
No, it was.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the motivations that we found out, and we need to go into further depth and investigate this. But a lot of them came here to gain both Japanese and English language skills and to get university degree qualifications. And the interesting thing was that the student who we interviewed, Uyen, she actually wanted to get transferable skills because her intention is not to live in Japan in the future. Her intention was to go back to Vietnam. So she wanted to be able to work in Japan, earn money, to be able to return home with money and with skills.
Yeah, and just choosing tourism, that's something that she wishes to apply when she goes back to Vietnam. But she has a goal, and she's here working part-time at McDonald's, and but also a student at Otamai, and taking classes in English and tourism. So
yeah, and there's a student in my class as well, and she has a very, very similar story where she's motivated, she has a study plan, she has a work plan, she has a certain amount of money that she wants to save up and then go back to Vietnam and start her own business. And so there's a really high level of motivation, but also she has a life plan already at a very young age. So the motivation is really, really quite noticeable here, which kind of made me ask that question at the bottom. Do these students have no strong motivation to work in Japan in the future or contribute to Japanese society? And that is, I guess, you can draw some parallels with some migrant communities who come to work but don't necessarily contribute to the society they're living in.
yeah, and some of them come here on student visas and they stay past their visa deadline, or some just come short term. But I don't I think recently the Japanese government has extended their stay for longer than before. But
Yeah, the Japanese government actually in the last
Mhm.
how many 3, 4, 5 years has really opened the doors for Japanese businesses to allow Vietnamese workers to come into Japan and to have better relations between Vietnam and Japan, which is, let a lot of Vietnamese come in to Japan to work specifically, and also given more opportunities for Vietnamese to go back to Vietnam and use Japanese language to work for a Japanese company as well. But yeah, my question here again is, well, how does that really benefit Japanese society? And while they're living here, outside of university and outside of the part-time job, are they, contributing to society? Or are they just invisible? Is kind of what I wanted to look at.
I just feel that it's personally really sad to know, but like sad to know, sad to think. But like they really don't feel much just themselves in future in Japan, because from their personal experiences, maybe when they chose Japan, they had a huge hope that they're gonna be, great success, and they're gonna have a wonderful time in Japan. But then reality is that maybe they couldn't make much Japanese friends, or like and also they are spending a lot of time for working.
Yeah.
And Japanese society using them as a cheap labor, and a lot of them work in like food industries and like a bed cleaning or something.
Yeah.
So, and so it's just really, to me, it's a really sad thing. And they basically that they chose Japan because it was maybe a convenient, but the same I mean maybe but still they had some hope. But at this moment, like after some months or 1 year, they thinking they don't find a future here, and they think that they gonna go back to their country, or even they might look for other country to go after leaving Japan. And that's my guess, or like feeling.
Yeah, I thought so too, and I did actually ask around. I asked a few students, when you came to Japan, when you chose to come to Japan, did you expect to stay on in Japan, and do you want to work here in the future after graduating? And the majority of them just like, no. They came to Japan with the intention of graduating and going home.
Oh.
And I was quite surprised by that answer,
Okay.
because a lot of other international students, they were excited to work in Japan and live in Japan and have that experience. But these Vietnamese students were very set on going home, and perhaps family is another.
Yeah, it could be
issue
family.
there.
Yeah, they have their reasons.
And that goes with what you said. They have like a life plan. So that's why, it's set. And I think they're very realistic, because Japan does not really, they're very uncomfortable at having people stay longer beyond graduation, for example. And I have seen some, I think, NHK documentaries about not just Vietnamese, but people from workers. And because of COVID, they're in a very difficult situation, because there's been no help. But, supposedly they were here to help the labor situation, but now when everybody's in trouble, they're not getting any help. So it was very sad. And I'm really worried about these foreign workers that are here and maybe are stuck. I don't know what the situation is. So the students that we're working with, at least they have the visa to study.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're probably from a higher socioeconomic level.
Yeah, that's what
So
we're
they're
assuming
here,
as well.
They have a big plan. So, get the education, qualifications, maybe earn money, but even if they cannot earn money, they'll go back to the situation in Vietnam, which I think is very wise.
I'll just put a slide up here for you, Donna. This is exactly what we were looking at when we were researching exactly who are the Vietnamese in Japan. If I can find the right one. Here we go. Here we go. So basically, I mean, initially there were lots of Vietnamese refugees that came from 1975 to Japan.
Right.
And then in 1993, there were the technical trainees, which, due to a law change in 2018, has really has expanded and included a lot of different fields. So technical trainees are essentially unskilled labor. Whereas number 3 here, the students who go to the language schools, universities, and technical schools, they are the skilled labor. So we in our classes, you know, we have these students from number 3, and like you said, they tend to be perhaps students from like higher socioeconomic areas.
Like when the student we interviewed, she started off at a language school, a Japanese language school, and then got into university here once her Japanese was good enough. And and that's pretty much it. And you know, she did mention, we asked about her community and everything, and she just said that didn't really meet many friends at school because she had part-time work. So, but she's met friends through her job, her part-time job there.
Yeah, and there are also Vietnamese in language schools who've come to Japan on visas to study Japanese language at language schools. I think it's like a minimum of about 10 hours per week. But what they do is then they spend the rest of their week working 2 or 3 different jobs to earn money. So for those students, so long as they fulfill the minimum requirements of their student visa at a language school, then they can work as much as they want. And they do that and to make a lot of money to then take back to Vietnam. And so although they are students, they're slightly different from students at universities.
Yeah, the Japanese government has become more lenient and given
much
them
more lenient
offers to work. Before they didn't allow that, but now they're allowing them to have 2 jobs or, you know, as a student. So
that's kind of tricky because they are using them as again like cheap laborers, and you know we don't have enough young people, and you know, and honestly, so again, for those people who come, you know, go to the language school, I'm not sure they are coming from the good status in their country. Honestly, like there might be some kind of like a promoter, and you know, trying to send those students to Japan. And
that's
they
right.
collect the money.
Oh, it's the broker.
Yeah,
brokers.
Brokers.
Yeah, and even though they want to go back to Vietnam, that you know, because they have some kind of debt, they have to work in Japan, make money.
Yeah,
you're right.
So those kind of situation, I'm kind of afraid of.
Yeah, that's true. They borrow the money to come to Japan, then they have to make the money to pay back the broker. And they also, you know, some of them probably don't have enough money for themselves. I mean, they just don't. Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard.
Yeah. But then if Japanese government is supporting that and, you know, trying to, you know, get more Vietnamese young people here, and that's really tricky, and I'm not sure that's really good idea. Even though we need the people. But
yeah, we need people, but at the same time, and my personal opinion is we need people to also kind of contribute to society as a whole.
Definitely.
And you know, I would like them to stay longer than 2 years.
Yes, I agree.
And as a result, you know, we've been able to see these communities start up that cater for example, the Vietnamese who come to Japan purely to work or study a little bit, but work mostly. And these communities have started to help, like, for example, events or social networks, restaurants, eateries, Vietnamese supermarkets as well. It's been a huge increase in these types of services.
But so now, okay, we'd say this is like a Vietnamese boom. Compared to before, when there was the influx of Chinese that came in. And so what happened to those Chinese? Did they go back to their country? Are they here still? Does anyone know about that? Because remember when we had so many Chinese students here.
We had so many Chinese students.
I don't see that many.
I think that because of the economic growth in China, the
Yes.
reason they are coming to Japan was they are trying to find better economic like society status. But
Mm.
then now that China's economy is boost, they don't find much reason to come to Japan. So maybe
Mhm.
those
Yeah.
students maybe go back to China, or Chinese students decided not to come to Japan because they
Mm.
can make more money.
Mm.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my
Yeah.
guess.
Also, in my last job, I worked closely with international students, and we had graduates who really, really struggled to look for jobs in Japanese companies. And there were just very, very few companies that would accept non-Japanese.
Yeah.
And our star student was a girl who did her postgraduate at our university, and she entered JR West
Mm.
as a seishain.
Mm-hmm.
But she was one of very, very few Chinese who could do that. But most of the doors into companies were closed to
Yeah.
these international students. So I'm assuming here that it would be exactly the same for the Vietnamese.
True. I think like a lot of companies require like a too high English, like Japanese language level, like N1 or something, which is like for me it's like not impossible, but like it's just too high.
You even.
Yeah,
like,
really. Well,
why we need that level?
Well, I mean, that's quite interesting. Even if you compare the Chinese and the Vietnamese, their language abilities is quite different as well. I mean, the Chinese have the initial advantage of being able to read and write kanji,
True.
which already is a huge hurdle for the Vietnamese students.
Must be.
And the need in Japan for healthcare workers is something that you need to have the Japanese skills for that. And I think that's troubled a lot of people from Indonesia that come to try and help, and probably Vietnam and China. Well, not China really, but Vietnam, Philippines. I don't think they can pass that language test. I think it's quite hard for them.
Yeah.
Wasn't that some years ago where it was in the news about this large group of Indonesians nurses? They already have qualification in their country. And then they went through this whole, process of being introduced, to the workplace. And they did have language courses. And if I recall correctly, the elderly people they were taking care of really liked them because they were so good with them face to face. But only one passed the Japanese test.
Ooh.
But can you imagine if suddenly you have to do all this medical stuff in a totally different language with kanji? Well, and I remember thinking, that's it's like an obstacle course where the government kind of knew. They didn't make any special dispensation, but they had to take the exact kind of, everything in Japanese. And you can't, when you have technical or medical language, it's really
terminology,
hard. And why didn't they put more focus on how were they able to deal face to face? Because they were able to pick up that language easily, the daily things. But it was the qualification thing that they failed, right? Which is kind of common sense. So to me, I thought that is so mean, that they put them through all of that, but then they don't make it through just because of the Japanese test.
Oh, I see.
So I was very sad about that.
Yeah, that's a shame, right? They come here, they train, but the test, that's the main thing.
That test, yeah.
The test.
Yeah, and the language level. And I know I shouldn't say this, but I mean, I have two very nice, there's about 4 or 5 of them now, very nice Vietnamese working in the convenience store just underneath my apartment. And I've begun to talk to them. So there's Zun Kun, and I think there was Chan Kun as well. So occasionally, and I'm just like, oh, Genki. Yeah. And Zun Kun only works night shifts. So he's a student and he studies during the day, he works during the day, and he works at My Family Mart during night shifts. So I'm kind of learning his story. but their Japanese pronunciation, general Japanese, is really quite low. So when you go into the
Yeah,
convenience
because
store,
it's a tonal language.
yeah, instead of "irashaimase," it's "konnichiwa." And I'm like, huh?
What?
I like iwakan ga suru. It's like, huh? But
You're
I
funny.
mean, I think people have kind of just come to accept that. You know, we're grateful that there are staff there. But yeah, I mean, definitely there's, compared to when like a lot of Chinese and Korean students and workers were working at convenience stores, I think the average language level, in my opinion, in my experience, has gone down a lot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't
Do you
sit
guys
around
not notice
chatting
that?
with them. I don't know. I don't sit around and chat with you know,
No.
people at the counter. I'm pretty much
No.
go.
No, I just
No.
Yeah.
I
buy
mean,
and leave.
they're good. They're really good at what they do. They work fast. They know what they're doing. Like as workers, they're really, really good. But the language level is just much, much lower.
Mm.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
So I mean, that goes back to motivation as well. I mean, the Vietnamese that I have seen or kind of observed are just really, really good at what they do. They're quick. They're not lazy. They get everything done. But unfortunately, yeah, it's the language level. I think it's a big, big hurdle for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I really think that we need to, like Japan need to change the like shift like the ideas, like what is the, you know, what is the minimum requirement and what is the efficient workers and what is the job task they really, you know, what is the priority.
Of
Yeah,
course.
I think they have shifted those priorities.
Yeah, honestly that sometimes like a Japanese company or Japanese general are too perfectionist. Like they need to have the perfect service or perfect, you know,
Mm.
like
Ah.
the quality need to be high or like, you know. So if the, you know, the service is not reaching to their expectations, then they would not provide or like they even, you know, cut off the opportunity to provide that service itself because quality is not high enough or
So it's
something.
either good quality or nothing.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you know, again, like we need more multicultural like society. Like we need more workers from abroad as a,
Mhm.
outside of Japan. And if we keep in that way, and of course also like the people immigrants know that okay, if we come they work in Japan, they need to be really high level or
Yeah.
they need to get a job, something really no skill, no experience, like no nothing like really transformative skills or you know only like a factory, you know.
Yeah, like
That,
unskilled labor.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 that's, you
Yeah.
know,
And that is one category that does exist now. Yeah.
yeah. And so, but in that case, I think that nobody gonna choose Japan in the end, in the long run.
Mm.
To me,
Hmm.
I feel like I'm afraid again. Like Japanese economy is relatively compared with other countries, maybe still stronger.
Yeah.
But once you know they find also like how the you know how Japan treating foreigners.
Mm.
Once they knows about the reality, then I think a lot of people gonna
Mm.
not to choose Japan.
Hmm.
Yuki, can I ask you, because you've done a lot of research and helped a lot of people
Yeah,
from, was it Brazil and
yeah,
Brazilian and Peruvian well, migrants
mhm.
essentially. Did they choose to stay on in Japan, like
Well,
in terms
actually,
of length?
yes. Actually, for Brazilian and Peruvians, a lot of people decided to stay.
Hmm.
They had a choice to go back to their country, but because of their own country's economy or also like the safety issue, like how, you know, if they want to raise a kids, you know, do you want to raise kids in some, you know, like more dangerous situation,
Hmm.
or they can, you know, but also maybe they feel more. I mean, children once because they brought the children and children grew up here, they know Japan more than their own country.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And even though they speak some Portuguese or a bit Spanish, but at the same time, like you know, for them it's still roots country, but still not their mother country, kind of, you know, because
Yeah.
they are born here and they are raised up here. So for them, they are staying here. But at the same time, it just kind of come back to this your original question. They don't feel that they can contribute to Japanese society, even though they live here and they're a
Hmm.
very important part of the society. But at the same time, Japanese society is not giving enough opportunity for them that
Mm,
they can
Ah.
contribute or they can be a very important part of our community
mm,
because they just feel they are outsiders, you know, they
mhm,
cannot make a friends or,
mhm,
you know, they don't feel needed.
Yeah.
Except,
mm,
yeah.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I
mhm.
think that's something we need to work on. I mean, we
So
in Japan need to work on.
that's a good point.
Yeah,
You
to
see, and
give them
so
the
how,
opportunity to contribute.
but
Yeah.
how can Japan give this opportunity in what way or another? I'm just thinking about us. We're here, you know, and how have well, Yuki, you're from Japan,
Mhm.
yes, but
Yeah.
Donna, Daniel, and myself. I mean, how have we become part of the community in Japan? I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
three of us have been here quite a long time, over 20
Mm.
years, right?
Sure, sure, sure.
Through where the workplace, that's a
Mm.
community, right?
Definitely,
The
yes.
academic
Definitely, yes.
workplace.
Yes. So,
Um,
mm, I think more of the like self-esteem kind of
uh-huh.
like self-esteem. You have a confidence. You know that you have a skills. You have a professions. You know you can do many things. You can, you know, very productive part of our community. And I'm sure you learn this from your experiences. But at the same time, there's some Brazilian kids or I'm not sure Vietnamese kids, but Peruvian kids, you know, they are still like in the schools, like they didn't make much friends, or you know, they couldn't advance to the, you know, high school, or they couldn't advance to the college, and they're working in factories or convenience stores, and they do not see much way to advance in their status. And then how they can contribute to community. I mean, of course, they are
Mm.
contributing by working that, you know, factory or convenience store, but at the same time, like I don't think that they actually can feel like they can achieve their dreams, or even they stop dreaming about it. Like, you know, this is the way it is, and but at the same time, I don't want to go other country or. So I think like more how I think they actually they have a lot of motivation to do it. They want to
Hmm.
do something good, but at the same time, like they don't know how to do it and how a place to do it, like when where they are welcome
Ah,
to.
so like the environment, a
Yeah.
welcoming, fostering environment.
So, you know, community might organize some, you know, volunteer events. Yeah, everyone
Hmm.
please come and, you know, let's do something good. But at the same time that, you know, oh, the Japanese are organizing this event, I'm not sure I'm welcome to join that. You know, maybe,
Mm,
you know, even I go there, but they wouldn't understand my Japanese, and maybe I'm just creating some burden for the organizer. So I just decided not to go.
mm,
Those
mhm,
kind of mentality, I'm kind of, I'm not sure I'm not seeing it, but I'm really afraid of.
mm. Part of society, you know, not, yeah, us as the outsiders, we've all
Mm,
felt that way,
mm,
being here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in US, so I was feeling outsider. I mean,
Okay.
well, I didn't have a control, you know. I didn't have a control. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, people are super nice to me, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I knew it, you know, for example, I ended up losing my visa and I had to come back to Japan.
Mm,
And, you know, something I know that I'm not the first priority of the society, and I do not have the controls, and I just
mm,
need to follow whatever they decide. I just need
mm-hmm.
to follow. And those feeling, you know, maybe, you know,
Mm.
outside of foreign citizen.
I see. So,
Um,
so you don't feel as though you're a valued member of society.
yeah, you know, even though I try so hard to contribute
Mm, mm,
society,
mm.
maybe they don't appreciate me.
How long were you there, Yuki, in the States?
Well, I was there for 10 years.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first 2 years, like 3 years was a student, so yeah. But 7 years I was working.
And you didn't feel accepted or like you were contributing to
No, no,
society?
no. I actually had a, you know, very positive, and I even wanted to get a permanent residency. So I
Yes.
tried to apply for green card, but the problem is that basically I couldn't apply for green card, and because of the so many requirements
Yes.
and people.
I understand.
Yeah, one organization was really supportive, but then I had another rumor and decided to actually change the organization because that organization is more advantage to get a green card.
Ah, okay.
Then that organization was actually totally no rigid, and I had basically like I lost the opportunity, and it was my choice, yes. At the same time, like a whole year was unknown situation. Can I really stay
Okay.
here? Not. They said
Yeah,
no,
that's a hard
Mm.
one, isn't it?
I'm not sure. And they actually even said that once, even though I left US and come back to Japan, still they're gonna bring me back to US after 1 year. But then didn't happen. So those things like it. That was my personal experience. Maybe not to relate to this, but I just feel that I feel a little bit. I understand that how you would feel that you are not the majority of the society,
Mm-hmm. I
and
understand.
being minority,
Mhm.
and I want to minimize those people in my country, especially Japan is such a huge majority.
Mm-hmm.
Majority is
Mm.
too big,
Homogeneous, yeah.
very homogeneous country. So, but I feel it's my responsibility
Mm.
to do something about it because I experienced that. Mm.
Mm.
Mm. So I'm actually doing some education program, learning SDGs and trying to
Oh,
international, like a foreign rooted youth and also Japanese university students, and we do learn and team up in small group and
Collaboration. Mm.
collaboration, how we can make Hamamatsu city more inclusive society, and and how we can each of us contribute to society.
oh.
Those kind of things I started last year, and but still, figuring out.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing because it's helping them feel as though that they have a role to play in society. Yeah.
Like when we plan for future of the community, I just want to include them.
Mm.
That future is not only for Japanese, it's
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
them too. So let's plan together. What kind of future would you like to have? And sharing ideas. That's something I want to do, and I hope that's gonna happen other areas of Japan too.
Mm.
Yeah, that's good. But which kind of brings me back to our issue here with the Vietnamese students. If
Yeah.
they have the intention only to come here to study, to work for a set period of time, which at the moment for unskilled workers, I think is a maximum of 2 years.
Yeah.
But for students who graduate, they can get a visa to become skilled workers to go into companies, and then they can go on the working visa track, which follows on to permanent residency. I mean, those doors are now open. I think they changed the law last year. They can do that now. But from what we've seen so far is a lot of students are motivated to come to work, but to go back to their
Yeah.
country again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think we need more role model, maybe.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, role models.
Student or Vietnamese worker succeed in Japan,
Ah,
and someone they can look up to.
yeah, that's true.
They can see that can happen,
Yeah.
because if
Maybe it's too early now because it's sort of new. This is all new, So maybe just a little more time.
Not true.
Well, I also think that each of the countries' embassies can make a difference. So, for example, the Philippine embassy has worked really hard, and for the I know about Osaka, so they have had all kinds of events. The same with Thailand. Every year they have a Thai festival,
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
and it's not just the embassy, but the embassy gives them support. But I think that if the embassies can have, they certainly should have more clout, more power.
Yeah.
And if they can get behind building their community, because that's a lot easier than us, right? Who
Yeah.
are we to do anything? We're pretty powerless. But I think if people in their embassies if they are able to support the, because a lot of people are separate. They're doing different things,
Mhm.
but the embassy can maybe, um, create certain events, community events to bring them together.
Well,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of what the New Zealand, what used to be the New Zealand consulate in Osaka did, but they closed the consulate and they made almost like a community center
Oh, okay.
to bring together people who are interested in New Zealand and New Zealanders in Kansai together. And there's only a very, very small number. I don't know, maybe 50 people at the most from New Zealand, but we don't know each other. There's no New Zealand
I was just
community at
wondering
all.
why when I was in America, I never met any New Zealanders, but I know a whole bunch of New Zealanders here in Japan. Just, proportionally compared to, say, Portugal or, other countries. Even I know more New Zealanders than Australians now.
Ah,
Before, when
okay.
I was first in Japan, I knew a lot of Australians. But now, and knowing that New Zealand is such a small population, to me, it's quite a lot. I
Yeah.
think maybe there's something that Japan resonates with New Zealanders.
I think
Perhaps.
there is, yeah. They're very
Yeah,
harmonious together. But that also touches on something that Yuki said before about economic opportunities. Whereas if you look back in the late 80s, lots of New Zealanders came and Australians came to Japan to teach because they could make good money for a few years and then go back. And I guess a similar situation with migrant workers. They were migrant workers in a way. And at the moment, yeah, the Vietnamese and soon to be the Nepalese are the next group in the Bangladeshi.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nepalis are, for Nepal, the country where the most Nepalis live outside of Nepal is Japan, because they're mostly in the restaurant business.
Yeah, a
So
lot.
if you go to any of the Indian restaurants, the cooks are from Nepal.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
so they might have, more Nepalis to help build a
That's true.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All right, I think we're
guess we're
going to
gonna
run
be
out of time.
Did? Oh my, I had more to
Yeah.
say.
too short.
Yuki, thank you so much. It was
Hey,
really good to see you
Yuki,
again.
Yeah, it's good to
had a
see you,
wonderful
even though we only
to
see you
see.
once a year.
Yeah.
Maybe he can start some kind of community.
Yeah, Yuki, can I get your email? Yuki, can I get your email address, by the way?
Like how maybe
Can you
I
put it in
will
the
look at
chat?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I recorded this, by the way. Is that okay if I record it?
Totally fine.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, Yuki.
Okay.
Yasutomi Yuki.
Yeah.
Yuki. Okay, that should be easy to remember.
Yeah.
Yuki at Gmail.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's Gmail. Sorry, G.
I think everyone's coming back now, and we have to
Yeah.
leave the channel and make it available for the next person who's coming in. So thank you all for doing your brown bags. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
very
Yeah,
much.
thanks
Thank you.
everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were
Okay,
just
everybody.
getting all heated up and ready to talk more.
Yeah.
For next time.
Okay, I think Emily or Diane's going to take over control again. So
Yeah, if you could hand it back to me.
okay, I thought you were already in it. No.
I'm co-host.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.